Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and we're going to continue on in Visual Basic to learn about how to create a text editor. And what we've done at this point is created many of the options. We've created the File New option at this point, and now we're going to create the File Open option, and also we're going to get our file from the disk. And to do that, we're going to add a component called the OpenFileDialog component into our project. So let's go to our project and continue on building our text editor. Okay, I have Visual Studio up, and we are at the MainForm in the Designer. And what I'm going to do is click on the toolbox, and you'll see that I'm going to pin it so I have it available. And I've already got it set to show the dialog components available. And one of them is the OpenFileDialog that we need to bring in. And so I'm going to double click on it, or we could drag it over, but it's going to end up in our component tray down below. So I'm just going to double click on the OpenFileDialog, and we'll get OpenFileDialog 1 as our default. And you'll see that there are a number of properties available to us to use on this. Now I could set those here, but instead I'm going to be doing it programmatically, so we'll do it inside our code as we modify the OpenFileDialog properties. So let's go now to the code. I'm going to click on the code area for MainForm, and what I want to show you first of all is that our documentation is out at Pastebin. So if you're following along and building this project, you can go out to Pastebin and download the code that we're doing through this series of the text editor. And so that if you have any problem, go out to Pastebin /u/jboh, and you'll see the text editor project with all its components. So let's take a look at the first thing we're going to deal with, and that is to look at the OpenFileDialog component. We've got that in place. And now we need to deal with the fact that we're going to be dealing with file I/O issues and file permission issues. And we want to be able to protect our program from crashing. So we're going to do an import a couple statements into our program. And you'll see me paste in real quickly these two import statements. And I'm going to place it above the class here. And we'll place it right in here. And so now we have the system I/O and system security. So if we have any trouble with our processing of the file, bringing it in, or we have problems with permission, these two components will help make it a little easier for our coding. Now let's come down to the declaration class level variables. We've had just these two thus far. I'm going to introduce a couple more private variables into our project, and so let me do a quick copy and paste. And I'm just going to overlay and add some more into this one. And so now we've added to this the constant file filter variable, and it is a string. And you'll see that I'm going to be working with plain text, log files, and then allow also the option of all files. So this allows me to define in the OpenFileDialog what types of file extensions I want to work with. Also, I've added into this the working path and the working path file. And you'll see the working path goes out to the My Computer file system, to the special directories, and I'm focusing on the My Documents area for it to initially go out and find the files we want to read with. So those are constants I brought in, and also variables that we'll be working with in this part of the segment. Now let's come down to our File Open option, where we're going to work here. And I'm going to take this part out real quickly, because we're going to change it now and add in the code. So let me go in, and I'm going to quickly cut and paste the code in place that we're going to be using today. And I'm going to come over here, paste it in, and then we'll talk about what I just did. Okay, I brought in the code for the OpenDialog in here with the OpenFileDialog that I brought in the Form Designer. And I'm going to set some of its properties as we work through this. Now, the first thing I want to do, though, before I open and bring in a new file, is to check if we have any changes. Just like we did above when we were working with a new file, we want to make certain we haven't wiped out anything that we want to keep. So we do a check of our save changes, go to that procedure. Now let's come on down. We're checked and we've saved any documents we want before we bring in a new file. Now we come into the OpenFileDialog and get it set. One of the things we want to do is go with the default multi-select default. So we only want to get one file, not a series of them. So this is one of the defaults for the OpenFileDialog, but I want to emphasize that we want only one file. Then for the filter for OpenFileDialog, I'm using the file filter. Once again, coming back up here to look at the top, we're going to get plain text with the txt extension, or a log file with an log extension, or we'll give the user the option to look at any file on the system with all files. Now, so we've set the default extension as well to txt, so that we focus on text files only, but we can look at the log file or all files if we want by using the file filter. Now initially we want to set the file name in the dialog box to string empty so that we have no file yet selected, because we're getting our file from scratch, and because we have declared the working path up at the top initially to be the My Documents area. Our initial directory will focus us into the My Documents folder. Now, what we do with the dialog box or component is we do the show dialog method. So you see, as I'm coming down here, I am actually doing OpenFileDialog 1 show dialog, and then if the return is dialog result OK, then I'm going to process the file. So we'll see as we come through, I'm going to get the file name that initially was empty. I'll have now a name with it because I'll have dialog result OK being returned. And I'll put that in my working path file. It'll include not only the file name but also the path to get to that file. And then I'll go run a subroutine called getFile that I've created. And this is the basic part of the OpenFileDialog. Once we've got the file, we're ready to go get the file. So I come down and I've coded in a private sub procedure called getFile. And what I'm going to be doing is going out with the My Computer File System part of the class and return back the file into our text property of my text box. So we see here that I have, with my text box, I'm going to change the text property by using the My Computer File System read all text. So that is a quick way to pull in all the information from a text file. Now, you can use other types of approaches. For example, you could use a stream reader. But I'm going to be using the file system read all text method to bring in the data. Then I want to set my modified property of the text box to false, because now it's a pristine file in one sense. And then I'll put the focus into the text box. Then I come back down after that section and I take my working path file and get the directory name, which now is just the path part, working path. And then also I want to change my text area of the form to have my application title and then get the file name that I'm working with. So I'm using the path get file name, and I'm putting a dash in between and concatenating these together to have a nice title on my form. Now all of this is inside a try catch in try block of code. Because we're dealing with file I/O activity, we could have a number of different problems. So what I'm going to do is go from specific to general in catching possible errors. For example, I can get an I/O exception, or I can get a security exception, and then I go for just the general exception. You'll see that I've coded in here the different possibilities, bringing in the exception message, and also in the title of the error what I have that might be going wrong. So this is the way you always want to code when you're dealing with file I/O activity, to do it in a try-catch in try block, so that if you have any problems, you catch it. And that's also why we put at the very top of our code the system I/O and system security into our code, so that when we came down to our catch area, we wouldn't have to be very specific. It would be all done by the help of the import statements. So we've got that in place. I'm going to knock out that extra in sub that I got at the bottom on that, and let's save it and let's give it a run. So I'm going to go back to a larger screen and run this, and let's see if we can bring in a file. Okay, we've got things set. We're going to go out and test whether we can bring in a file. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go to Open, and there is my Open dialog kicking in. I'm going to go over here, grab a file. In this case, I'm going to grab a nice little quote that I have out there from Edmund Burke and pull that in. Now notice I've got plain text over here. Also, I could go to a log file or all files, and that helps me filter what I want to look for. For example, if I go all files, I'll see all the files in that directory. If I go for the log file, we'll see just the one. And since I'm working with plain text, I want that, and I want this file name. And by hitting open, I'll get back the result OK and bring in this file. And there the file came in, and you'll see my title area of my form is now changed to reflected, and I have the text that I had in that file out there. So we have it working. Also, because we've coded this, let's do a new, because I didn't do a change. It was okay to do a new without asking. And I'm going to use now also the button, which does the same event. We'll go out. It remembered where I was at from the last time by saving the working path, and then I just can come back and click on a file, open it, bring it in, and I have it there. So we see we can bring in another one with the information about what we just did. So we've got our code going. I want you to remember that our documentation's out there for you to look at, and I hope that you'll go out and take a look. Once again, here's a quick look at the documentation area where everything is stored. If you'd like, pause your video at this point and write down the information, and you'll go out to Pastebin and take a look at the code we just did today. So if you liked today's video and you're liking the project in general, give me a thumbs up and maybe even give some comments. I'll try to get back to you if I can, and in the meantime, get your hands dirty in the code. Work on this project and others like it. Learning how to create a notepad-like application gives us good understanding about many of the components of Visual Basic, and that makes us better programmers. So until next time, take care and get your hands dirty in the code.